Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting episode of Grab a Seat with Rahiem. I'm your host, Rahiem Fender. Now, today we'll be talking to the author, Levon Erskine, on his new book, Elvin, The Legacy of Thayer. Welcome, Levon.
Good to be here, man. Good to be here.
So, Levon, tell me, what inspired you to write Elvin?
For me, I've always known that I was a writer deep down. I've always known that that's my God-given talent. And over the years, you go through your work, your different jobs and whatnot, you don't really feel as fulfilled. At least that was my experience. And something just clicked one day. I think I was inspired by the Harry Potter series for sure. A good friend of mine had actually ordered 2 copies of the 6th book and sent it to me. I could send it down to him and he could sell one. So I started reading and looking through it. I was like, "Bitch, reading Harry Potter?" Mind you, we both read and grew up on comic books. I have no reason saying that to him like that.
Right.
I started to look with them like, this is pretty interesting, it's engaging. So I went back and I read that book and I started to read all the other books as well and follow the movies. And then something just clicked between all that where I literally had this and an epiphany like, say, oh man, you could write a book. You have the imagination, you've always been making things up over the years, making short stories, creating comic book characters, and why don't you just go for it?
Why not?
Because considering where J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter, came from, from humble beginning, just really struggling, and just had the idea pop up and just went for it. The main thing for me was like, yo, why not you? So I decided to put pen to paper and just start plotting it out. And the good thing is that the idea, for the most part, it came almost fully formed in my mind. So it was a matter of just fleshing out the storyline as to what I want to happen at the end. But yeah.
Cool. So, how many years it took you to write the book?
Honestly, I would say about a little over 5 years. And not just for the writing aspect, because when you start and you stop, you get busy with work, you change jobs and all these different things. So for me, from inception to final published ready draft, I would say just over 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
And do you think that the public is going to really take to Elvin?
I think so. And I think this is probably one of my favorite parts to talk about with regards to the book, because one of the things that I try to really do is to write what you know. Because it's always good to write what you know in terms of either things you're trying to make up or things that you want to mirror reality. So at that point in time, I was living in DC. So my main character starts off living in DC before he goes to the other world. And for me, I put myself into the shoes and the mindset of a 13-year-old boy. And what it would be like, and got myself in touch with my emotions and this mental state at that point in time, and then wrote from that point of view. And from people who have read it thus far, people who have reviewed it, like friends and whatnot, people who already bought it and actually have put reviews on Amazon. So far, everything has been 5-star and 4-star. And one of the main themes that occurs is that it feels very real. Not so much like it's overly realistic because he goes to another world, it's fantasy.
Right.
But the feeling of like what he goes through in the first part of the book, like just being in school and these are things that have him do, like go to his first date, So I think that's something that everybody can sink their teeth into, not only for people who like fantasy fiction, but everybody who reads, I feel like, this is my personal belief, if something's engaging, people will read.
So, what age can people pick this up? A teenager could pick this up.
I would say yes. I would say if I had to put myself in one market, I would say maybe young adults, because the book, there are things that happen in the book that are a bit dark. And what I mean by that is like the serious stuff that's happening, where I would not necessarily recommend it for somebody who's 10 or 11,
Right.
well maybe 11 depending, but like 12 and up going into teenager, where you can process that more, where you probably seen or heard about some of that stuff in just regular life,
Right.
but not necessarily young. Unless you have a really mature kid.
So, does it have a lot of depth?
Alright, so we went into spoiler territory.
Yeah.
Alright, so.
Just a little bit of spoiler.
Yeah, a little bit of spoiler. Yeah, I would say yes. Off the bat, yes. One word answer. Not necessarily a lot of depth, but depth is in the book.
Okay.
And it's something where you see it happen from a kind of an outside perspective, in the sense of what occurs in the book. Just in terms of like, chapter to chapter or whatnot, but also you also see an emotional aspect to it, how the main character deals with death, and just the type of emotion that elicits from you. So that's why I say in those regards, a very serious content in terms of that aspect.
Right.
Where if I was 10, but then I read comic books at 10.
Yeah.
So, but just to be on the safe side, parent friendly, I would say like maybe 12 and up.
Okay,
And
cool.
I mean up because I feel like if you just like fantasy,
So even if you're 50, you can.
absolutely.
Okay,
If you like
cool.
your Harry Potter, if you like your Lord of the Rings and all that, I think you'd like this.
This is
I
a good
consider it's a
book.
good mix between the two.
Okay, and the ethnicity that's in this book, is it white, Asian, Caucasian? Oh, well, a Caucasian is white.
Yeah.
Blacks. What exactly is it? Is it a mixed multitude of persons,
It,
or
it is. And I originally, I mean, that was the plan all along, and that's what came to fruition. But my goal was to have, first of all, protagonists of color.
Mhm.
Because I find that I wouldn't say I'm the very first person to do that. I don't know that for sure.
Right.
But I can't think of any popular fantasy series that has a person of color at the forefront.
Right.
Right? So that was my first thing. I said, okay, right, what you know. So that's what I personally would like to see. And one of my missions in terms of the fantasy was writing in general. I want to add to things. Not necessarily take away what I want, but add to whatever is there.
Right.
And not disrespecting anything that came before me.
So, so then a 13-year-old, a black 13-year-old picking this book up could relate to this character.
Absolutely. And I'll even go a step further. And this is where things go how would I say it? I think from an artist standpoint, especially if you are trying to market your own book and self-publish, you have to look at it in two veins. There's an artistic vein and there's a business vein.
Right.
Now, there's certain things that was motivated from the business vein in terms of how I constructed the book. That's the composition of characters and so forth. So, for example, even the main character, he's biracial, right? He's like technically biracial. But you look at him, he looks like me, and he looks like you. And his supporting cast, like his first group of friends, very diverse crew, because I wanted one to reflect the diversity in DC at the time, and also just growing up in Jamaica, you have a diverse group of people, up in one people.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I wanted to reflect that. So he has friends who range from Caucasian, Asian, Black American or African American, whichever you prefer. And then when he goes to the other world, well, that's totally different because you're
So we
talking
see
different
elves and we
species.
see different.
Right, exactly.
Okay, cool.
So I want an entire diversity, both in terms of the diversity that we know on Earth, in terms of different races, and also, I mean, like different ethnicities and races, and also the diversity of being in a fantasy world where you have different races of beings and creatures and all that good stuff.
So, okay, the protagonist is a person of color.
Yes.
The antagonist, is this a different species, or is this what is it?
Well, here's what I can tell you, because some parts of it is I wouldn't necessarily call it spoiler territory, but I want it to kind of be revealed in the reading in a sense. Because one of the things I will say is that the antagonist for this first novel, you don't see that person like literally in terms of description wise or anything until near the very end. And even then, there's something that happens that makes you question, like, wow, what's really going on there? What's this person really all about? It starts off where you're getting a little bit of a taste of who that person is as a person.
Right.
What might be their motivations, their character, so to speak. Because obviously, antagonist will be somebody who's more or less evil, right? But what I can tell you is that it's definitely another species. It's not human,
Right.
for sure. It's something that is human-like, I would say. Because what I did in the book, I have elves, which would be the main kind of like star race, so to speak. That's a star. I mean, like, in star movie, like that's the main group of focus on.
Right.
And part of my protagonist's lineage is from elves
So he's part elf.
as well, right? So
So-
he's very multicultural.
So tell us about his abilities. What as an elf? Because I mean, for those who read The Hobbit and they've read Harry Potter and these different fantasy books,
Right.
elves tend to have different types of abilities. Is Elven going to have similar abilities, or is his ability or abilities a bit new and fresh?
I would say a little bit of both. Because first, to kind of clarify with elves, what I have noticed, if you think about, let's say, Harry Potter, the elves that are in Harry Potter are considered house elves. Like, those are the ones where you would think about where, like, Santa Claus in his workshop, small people who kind of help their own and they have some magical ability. And then you have, like, the elves from Lord of the Rings, where, like, what people would call it Tolkien-style elves, who they're the ones that are immortal, they're tall, slim-built, very athletic, usually very, aware and smart, in tune with the surroundings, but oftentimes a little bit reserved, where they're usually, I was like a supporting character in a book, where the main person might be human or whatnot. So my elves, first of all, kind of tend to be more like the Tolkien elves, but with a little bit of twist. Like I took out the immortality thing because I wanted them to have a long lifespan but not be immortal.
Right.
So I think it would be interesting to say, okay, what would it be like if you lived for say 300 odd years, but then other people thought you were immortal, other races, because they don't live as long, so they just assume
That you're
immortal.
Right.
So now with that, to kind of get back to your main question about his abilities, in the first book, you're going to see a budding of certain inklings of abilities. Because what I wanted to do was really ground him in his earth life, and then when you get him over to fair, see how he reacts to everything around him and how he uses what he already has.
Right.
So in the first book, you don't really see much in terms of powers per se. What you see is out of perseverance, bravery, trying new things, and strategy. But what will happen over time is that the elves that he first, kind of, I guess, for lack of a better term, hangs out with, they have an ability. And I've done it in a sense that, well, not a sense, I've done it in a way where each elf group that you'll encounter will have a specific ability unique to them. Almost like, you know anime and manga.
Right.
Both share that background. If you think of something like Naruto, where you have a specific jutsu,
Right.
bloodline jutsu, like a Sharingan or something like that.
Right.
That's what I was going for. So I consider my elves like a mixture of maybe.
So some might have elemental abilities, some are. Okay,
Exactly,
cool.
but very varied, not just limited to elemental. So I think of my elves as a blend of maybe your Naruto style ninjas and then mutants like with X-Men.
Right.
Because their particular abilities will be innate, but based off of years of practice holding a specific kind of magic that everybody has, but they possess a large amount of it. And then there are certain abilities that they just kind of share among each group regardless.
For the regular elves.
Yeah, there's like some simple things like being able to turn on light without actually you don't have light switches there,
Right.
or without lighting a candle. Some simple common spells like that I want everybody to kind of like have.
So the basic
Right.
spells. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Where do you plan to take Elven? Is there a graphic novel in the mix? Are there toys in the mix? Is there a movie in the mix?
Yes, and yes. My mode again for me, or not my mode, really, but my goal is to kind of replicate what happened in Harry Potter and go beyond. So what I mean by that is that you had the books, which did really well. They grabbed the public awareness and held on to it to the point where somebody said, "Hey, we can make a movie out of this." They did the movies. They have toys. They now have a theme park. I think in Orlando they have a Hogsworth themed park, the park, and you have video games. So I want to do all of that, but the things that they don't necessarily have, they may have them now, like comic books, but initially they didn't have them. So being somebody who grew up on comic books and still reads comic books, I want to have the books, I want to have comic books, I want to have graphic novels, right? I want to have an anime series specific to a specific point in time during the entire series, focusing on that. And I want to have toys, video games, the whole
So I
nine
can
yards.
put one on my shelf soon.
Absolutely, that's the plan. Because the way I look at it, you look at Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, but more Harry Potter because it's more modern. It has grown beyond being just a book series. It's a brand. It's an empire, literally.
Yes.
You're talking about J.K. Rowling being, I think, one of the richest women in the world.
Right.
Definitely the richest citizen in UK.
Right.
A billionaire. All from one idea that she fleshed out and grabbed the public's imagination and held on to. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I like.
So you're planning on beating Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee, one of NCB. You want to be the biggest billionaire in Jamaica.
Well, put it this way.
All from the book, Elven. Of course, why not?
Why not? My thing is that, of course, you have to produce more books. So but first of all, like my plan is to have as many as 5 main books. What I mean by that, like just the book that you have everybody be used to, like part 1, part 2, whatever. But I want to do something for now I call them bridge books.
So you have like fillers.
Not necessarily fillers, because it is something where I would honestly say that you don't necessarily have to read it to enjoy and understand the full story. But there's certain elements that are fleshed out more in these bridge books.
Okay.
So, for example, the first one I'm working on right now will be a follow-up to this, but it will be a bridge book. It's a novella in the first person point of view from a character from this book. It deals with
not one of the main characters.
One of the main characters, but not the main character.
But not the, okay.
Because at the end of this book with the main character, what I would say is that you're not sure what occurs with him. So there's a question lingering in the air. Now this is going to fill in some of that time in terms of while you're wondering what's going on with him, this is what he left behind. But these people have to go through. And you're seeing that through the eyes of this one of the other main characters that were kind of pairing with him.
Mm-hmm.
So similar with other bridge books I'll do, I'll focus on one main character, again from the first person point of view, so you can get their perspective. Now what I would say is that this one coming up that I'm working on now
Mm-hmm.
is, I would consider essential reading because it helps to determine the direction that everything's kind of going early. The rest of them are more like, if you really want to get deep and understand the psyche of the person or the characters, then you need that. You know?
Alright, so, alright. My second to last question that I really want to find out. Let's put Elven versus Lynx from Zelda. Who's more powerful?
You know what? I mean, I could go the bias road and just say my guy. But to be very honest with you, and one of the fun things about just doing this process, I'm still working around what I want his abilities to be. Because one of the things I'm sure about now is that being as though he's basically a hybrid elf-human person, I want him to have an ability that is unique to him, that he neither has. So that's one thing. And then two, I'd like him to have the ability to pick up things relatively quickly. So those two I'm kind of sure about. So I'd say based on what I know about Link, I mean Link anybody who plays Zelda know that Link has some access to some really cool things in terms of weaponry and magic and whatnot. But in and of himself, just without everything else, he's just kind of regular. Probably like regular athletic ability of somebody who works out a lot or whatnot. So I'm going to go with my guy.
Okay, cool.
My guy.
Alright. So I want you to tell the audience right now where they can pick up Elven and how much it costs and why they should pick up Elven, the Legacy of the Air.
Perfect. So right now you can pick it up in one of two places. You can get it from Amazon because it was originally written for Kindle, and it's $4.99, so you can download that if you have a Kindle device or the Kindle app, or if you have Amazon Prime. And you can also get a hard copy like this from CreateSpace that is operated from Amazon as well, and they do print on demand. So basically, you order the book, you print it, and they send it to you. So it's great. And just by the way, as an aside for all the aspiring authors out there, that is why that's the way to go, because there's zero overhead for you, and Amazon provides all these services for you. Now, as to physical copies, they are $15.99, and depending on when you go on Amazon, it may be a little bit lower, a little bit higher, because they do their own marketing as well. And lastly, as to why you should buy this. Now, we're going to go into something that you're probably wondering why we didn't start off with this, but that's because we're saving this for last. So here's my pitch. Elven Legacy of Fair is the story of a 13-year-old boy who finds out he's part elf. He finds out that he has a destiny to go to another world called Fair and unite the elves against a common foe that is taking a dark hold of the populace, and the rest of the populace doesn't even really realize it. So it's a very kind of the early dystopia in the sense that things are becoming harsh and cruel in that world. And while that is going on, that same enemy is taking his time to eliminate elf groups, like one after the other. So it's almost like they're becoming extinct. But then the elves are all in different places, and there's a scandal that happened a few years back that forces them not to trust each other. So he has to build through that, try to unite everybody while on the clock to save both the rest of the elves as a race and this world up there. And that is why you should buy that in terms of the storyline. Why you should buy it in general is because it's a really good read. I'm not just saying that as an author, but from what I've understood from people who have read it, reviews online, people enjoy it, people think that it's realistic, they can relate to that. And at the end of the day, it's a good story. It's fantasy, it's an escape, it's imagination, put on paper and pen or Kindle, I guess invisible ink if you want to call it. But this is something I think that has not been done like this before. It's new, it's exciting, and give it a shot. And if you like it, definitely tell your friends.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for tuning in to Grab a Seat with Rahiem. I'm your host, Rahiem Fender, and check us out again. We are out.